Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. Emma Brooks, a waitress with big dreams, had never imagined her life would bring her to this moment. She stood outside an upscale New York City restaurant, her breath fogging up the window as she took a quick glance at her reflection. Her dress was secondhand, her shoes scuffed, and her nerves were running wild. The restaurant was the kind of place where every plate looked like a work of art, where every guest seemed to exude confidence and power. But Emma didn't belong in a place like this. She had promised her best friend, Jenny, that she would go through with this blind date, and now she was here, feeling completely out of place. She took a deep breath and pushed the door open, the warm air greeting her as she stepped inside. The sound of soft conversation and the clink of silverware filled the air. Table 7. Table 7. Emma muttered to herself, trying to steady her nerves. Her eyes scanned the room quickly, and then she saw him. A man, sharply dressed in a perfectly fitted suit, sitting alone at a table near the back. His dark hair was neatly styled, and he seemed completely absorbed in his phone. That had to be him, she thought. She approached him, her heart pounding in her chest, trying to keep the nervousness out of her voice. "Hi, you must be Kevin," she said, forcing a smile as she slid into the chair across from him. Liam Parker, the man she had just mistaken for Kevin, blinked up at her, startled. His confusion was clear, but before he could speak, Emma quickly filled the silence, thinking it was just shyness on his part. "I know this is awkward," she said, fidgeting with the napkin in her lap. "Blind dates are weird, right? Jenny told me you might be a little quiet, so don't worry, I can talk enough for both of us." Liam opened his mouth to correct her, but hesitated. His business associate had just texted him to cancel their meeting, and something about Emma's earnest smile made him pause. She was nothing like the polished socialites he was used to. She was down-to-earth and unpretentious. Her honesty was refreshing. He decided to play along, giving her a faint smile. "Right, blind dates are something else," he said, his voice low but amused. Emma laughed nervously, taking a sip of water. "Tell me about it," she said. "Jenny's been trying to set me up for months, but I've been too busy. Work, you know." Liam, intrigued despite himself, asked, "What do you do?" Emma shifted in her seat, her fingers nervously tracing the edge of her water glass. "I'm a waitress," she admitted with a slight shrug. "Not exactly glamorous, but it pays the bills. Well, most of them anyway. What about you?" she asked, trying to shift the focus off herself. "What do you do?" Liam hesitated for a moment before replying. "I work in tech." Emma smiled, though her eyes widened slightly. "Tech? That's cool. Like coding in apps, right?" "I'm terrible with computers," she said, laughing lightly. Liam's smile widened as he leaned back in his chair, clearly more comfortable now. They continued talking, the conversation surprisingly easy despite the awkwardness of their initial meeting. Emma shared stories of her struggles, the long shifts at the diner, and her dream of opening her own art studio. She spoke with passion, her enthusiasm contagious. Liam found himself laughing more than he had in months. She was unlike anyone he had met before, so genuine in a world full of calculated conversations. He couldn't remember the last time he'd had a conversation like this, one that didn't revolve around business or appearances. Emma, still oblivious to the truth about Liam's identity, smiled at him, her nerves slowly easing. She was about to ask him more about his work in tech when suddenly, her phone buzzed. "Hey Emma, where are you?" "I'm at table 7. Looking forward to meeting you, Kevin." Her stomach sank as she reread the message. She looked up at Liam, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "You're not Kevin, are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam's smile faltered for a moment, but there was no judgment in his eyes. He nodded slowly, guilt flickering in his gaze. "No, I'm not," he admitted. Emma's face turned beet red as she scrambled to grab her coat. "Oh my God," she muttered, standing up quickly. "I'm so sorry. I sat at the wrong table." Liam stood up too, his hand reaching out as if to stop her. "Wait," he said, but Emma was already halfway to the door, her face burning with embarrassment. She didn't know why, but the thought of seeing him again bothered her more than she wanted to admit. As she rushed out of the restaurant, Liam stood there, a mix of regret and curiosity swirling in his chest, wondering if he would ever see her again. And why? Just why? The thought of never seeing her again felt like a mistake he wasn't sure he could make. It had been a few days since Emma's embarrassing encounter at the restaurant. She had tried to put it behind her, but the memory of the handsome man with the dark, thoughtful eyes lingered in her mind. She had made a fool of herself, after all, thinking he was Kevin, and running out without even letting him explain. But something about him had felt different, unlike the usual people she interacted with. Maybe it was the way he had smiled at her, like he wasn't judging her for her second-hand dress or her nervous chatter. No, he wasn't like the others she had met. She shook her head, trying to push the thoughts away. She had enough on her plate already. Emma had to focus on her work, on making ends meet. The dream of one day opening an art studio was still alive, though faint. But right now, all she could think about was getting through another shift at the diner. It was a cold afternoon when Emma's shift ended, and she was walking home, her stomach growling from missing lunch, when her phone buzzed. She checked it quickly, half expecting another message from Jenny, her best friend. Instead, it was a message from an unknown number. "Hi Emma. It's Liam. I believe we were supposed to meet at table 7 the other night. I wanted to apologize for the confusion. Would you like to meet for coffee? I owe you an explanation." Emma stared at the screen in disbelief. It was him. Liam. The man she had been trying to forget. Her heart skipped a beat as she reread the message, her fingers frozen on the screen. After a long moment, she responded, trying to keep her tone casual. "Sure, coffee sounds good. How about tomorrow at 10? The next morning, Emma found herself waiting outside a small, cozy cafe, her nerves bubbling up again. She had never been one to dwell on things for too long, but there was something about Liam that made her feel unsure. Would he think she was just a girl who didn't know the first thing about high society? She straightened her shoulders, trying to remind herself that she was more than the clothes she wore or the job she had. She had dreams, big dreams. When Liam arrived, he was dressed casually in a light jacket and jeans, but still carried the air of someone who belonged in a world far beyond hers. He gave her a warm smile when he saw her, the same smile that had made her heart flutter the other night, though she quickly reminded herself that this was just an apology. "Hi, Emma," he greeted, his voice soft yet confident. "I'm really sorry about the mix-up the other night. I should have told you earlier. I wasn't expecting a blind date, either." Emma smiled awkwardly, her fingers playing with the edge of her coffee cup. "No, it's okay. I mean, I was the one who sat at the wrong table. I'm just glad we're talking now." They sat in silence for a moment, the hum of conversation around them providing a strange comfort. Emma wasn't sure what to say. How do you start a conversation after running out on someone? She couldn't help but notice how at ease he seemed, how much more relaxed he was this time compared to their first meeting. "So, you really work in tech?" Emma asked, unable to resist the curiosity. She hadn't expected someone like him to be so grounded. Liam chuckled softly, his eyes sparkling with amusement. "Yeah, I do. It's not as exciting as it sounds. Mostly, I deal with coding and software development. It's just a job, really, but I do enjoy it." Emma nodded, trying to keep the conversation flowing. "I guess we all have our own things that keep us going, huh? For me, it's the diner and art. I really want to open a gallery someday. That's the dream, at least." "That's incredible," Liam said, his tone genuine. "You're passionate about it." Emma felt her face flush a little at the compliment, but she smiled, thankful for the change in topic. She hadn't expected him to be so easy to talk to, but there was something refreshing about their conversation now. It felt like the awkwardness of the other night had melted away, replaced by something deeper. As they spoke, Emma learned that Liam was far more than just a tech guy. He had a genuine interest in people, a curiosity that made her feel seen. He listened to her, really listened, in a way that felt different from the conversations she had with most people. Eventually, the topic shifted to their personal lives. Liam told her a little about his family, how he had grown up with a lot of expectations placed on him. Emma listened intently, her heart softening as she realized that, despite the apparent wealth and success, Liam had his own struggles. As they finished their coffee, Liam stood up, adjusting his jacket. "I'd like to see you again, Emma," he said, his expression serious now, though still kind. Maybe next time, it'll be at an art gallery? Emma looked at him, taken aback by the invitation. She hadn't expected him to want to spend more time with her after everything that had happened. But there was something about the way he looked at her now, something sincere in his eyes. I'd like that, she said quietly, her voice soft, but certain. As she left the cafe, Emma's mind was racing. What had just happened? She hadn't expected to feel this way, not after the initial mess-up. But something about Liam had made her feel hopeful, and maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end of the story. And with that thought, Emma couldn't help but wonder, what would happen next? It had been a week since Emma met Liam at the cafe, and their connection had grown in ways she hadn't expected. They'd met a few more times since then, each time their conversations flowing more naturally, as if they had known each other for years. Emma found herself looking forward to their meetings, something she hadn't done in a long time. She couldn't deny it. There was something about Liam that drew her in, something beyond the fact that he was a millionaire tech CEO. He was kind, genuine, and surprisingly humble. But Emma wasn't ready to let herself fall too quickly. She had been hurt before and wasn't going to rush into anything, especially with someone like Liam. Today, she was nervously walking to an art gallery she had been invited to for an opening, one of the few events she felt she truly belonged at. She was excited, but her nerves were making her second-guess herself. She had spent the past few days working extra shifts at the diner to save up enough to buy a new dress, something a little fancier than her usual work clothes. As she stepped into the gallery, the cool air inside contrasted with the warmth of the street outside, and she felt a wave of relief. It was an elegant place, full of art and high-end clientele. She scanned the room, her nerves peaking again. But then she saw Liam. He was standing by one of the paintings, talking with a small group of people. When he spotted her, his face lit up, and he excused himself from the conversation, walking over to her with a warm smile. "Emma," he greeted, his voice easy and sincere. "I'm so glad you could make it." Emma smiled, trying to hide her nerves. "Thanks for inviting me," she replied. "This place is beautiful." "It is," Liam agreed, glancing around. "It's one of my favorites. I thought you might like it." They walked through the gallery together, discussing the pieces, with Emma feeling more at ease than she had expected. Liam listened intently as she spoke about the art and her dreams of opening her own gallery someday. She could see that he was genuinely interested, and it made her feel like her dreams weren't as far-fetched as they had once seemed. As they reached a quieter section of the gallery, Liam turned to her, his expression serious yet soft. "Emma, there's something I need to tell you," he began, his voice low, almost hesitant. Emma looked at him, confused but curious. "What is it?" Liam took a deep breath, as though gathering his thoughts. "I know I've kept this from you, but it feels like the right time to tell you the truth. I'm not just a guy who works in tech. I'm Liam Parker, CEO of a major tech company." Emma blinked, her heart skipping a beat. She had already suspected he wasn't just some regular guy, but hearing the words made it all too real. She tried to keep her voice steady. "I figured you were successful," she said, a small laugh escaping her lips. "But, CEO of a major company." Liam nodded, his gaze steady. "I didn't tell you at first, because I didn't want you to think I was just another rich guy looking for someone to spend time with. I didn't want you to think that I was looking for something out of you." Emma's heart was racing now, but she tried to stay calm. This wasn't the first time someone had been secretive about their wealth, and she didn't want to jump to conclusions. She had to process this. I don't know what to say," she admitted, her mind racing. "I didn't expect this. I thought we were just two people getting to know each other." Liam reached out, gently touching her arm. "We are. I just didn't want you to feel like I was lying to you. I want to get to know you, Emma, not because of who I am, but because of who you are. Your dreams, your passion, that's what matters to me." For a moment, Emma stood there, unsure of what to feel. She had always tried to keep her personal life separate from the pressures of money and status, but with Liam, things were different. She had never met anyone like him. His words were sincere, and his eyes were filled with an honesty that left her speechless. I'm not sure if I can trust this," she said quietly. "People like you, with so much power and money, it's hard for me to believe that you could care about someone like me. I've been hurt before by people who didn't really care." Liam's expression softened, and he stepped closer. "I understand, Emma, but this is different. I care about you. Not your job, not your financial situation, but you, the person you are. I'm not asking for anything from you. I just want to be honest with you and see where this goes. Emma looked into his eyes, searching for any signs of deception. She didn't see any. She saw only sincerity, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like she could let her guard down. Okay, she said finally, her voice quiet but resolute. I'll trust you. And in that moment, something shifted between them, a new understanding, a new beginning. As they continued to walk through the gallery, side by side, Emma couldn't help but feel that this was just the beginning of something much bigger, something that could change her life forever. But as the evening wore on, she couldn't shake the thought that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a story about a millionaire and a waitress. Maybe it was a story about two people finally finding each other in a world full of uncertainty. It had been a few weeks since Emma had agreed to give Liam a chance, and their connection continued to grow. Despite her initial hesitation, she had found herself thinking about him more and more. They met often, at cafes, art galleries, and even a few quiet walks in the park. Liam was different than anyone she had ever known. He was down to earth, charming, and always made her feel at ease. But even with all that, Emma still had her doubts. The difference in their worlds, the fact that he was a millionaire CEO, was never far from her mind. She wasn't sure if she could fully trust someone who had everything, or if she was just another person to him. But with each passing day, she found herself softening, and maybe, just maybe, she was starting to believe in him. One day, Liam invited her to a charity gala, something she wasn't sure she was ready for. It's for a cause I'm passionate about, he had said, his voice full of sincerity. I would love for you to come with me. Emma had hesitated at first, nervous about attending such an extravagant event. But after much thought, she agreed. She wanted to show him that she could be part of his world, even if it was outside her comfort zone. The night of the gala, Emma stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her dress. It was a simple yet elegant black gown she had picked up from a small boutique. It wasn't as expensive as the gown she saw at the event, but she felt confident in it. She had decided that tonight was not about the money, not about the fancy clothes or the people she didn't know. It was about Liam, and maybe, just maybe, about figuring out what this connection between them really was. When she arrived at the venue, the atmosphere was nothing short of glamorous. The venue was a grand ballroom, with crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling and the hum of soft music playing in the background. The guests were all dressed to the nines, and Emma felt like she had stepped into another world. But when she spotted Liam across the room, talking to a group of people, her nerves settled. He caught her eye immediately and smiled, walking toward her. You look stunning, he said, his voice warm as he took her hand. I'm glad you made it. Emma smiled back, feeling her heart race a little. Thanks. This place is incredible, she said, her gaze taking in the grandeur around her. I'm glad you like it, Liam replied, his smile never faltering. Come on, let me introduce you to some of the people here. As they walked through the crowd, Emma couldn't help but feel out of place. She tried to smile and make conversation, but it was hard to focus with so many unfamiliar faces and the pressure of being the only ordinary person in the room. But Liam never left her side. He introduced her to a few people, always keeping her close, making her feel like she belonged there. Later in the evening, the event began to wind down, and the moment Emma had been dreading arrived. Liam's business partner, a tall man in a sharp suit, approached them with a friendly smile. He extended his hand to Emma, greeting her with a polite but distant smile. It's nice to meet you, he said. Liam has spoken a lot about you. Emma shook his hand, trying to keep her composure. Nice to meet you too, she replied, her voice steady, but inside she felt a flicker of unease. Liam noticed the shift in her demeanor and placed his hand gently on her back. Hey, don't worry. You're doing great, he whispered in her ear, offering her an encouraging smile. As the night continued, Emma found herself more relaxed, despite her initial worries. Liam kept her close, always attentive, making sure she never felt left out or uncomfortable. It was then that she realized this was more than just a simple relationship. He was giving her the kind of care and attention she had only dreamed of. In that moment, she felt truly seen. By the end of the evening, after most of the guests had left, Liam walked Emma to her car, the cool night air refreshing after the warmth of the ballroom. They stood there for a moment, the quiet between them feeling comfortable. I'm glad you came tonight, Liam said, his voice soft but earnest. It means a lot to me. Emma looked up at him, her heart beating a little faster. I'm glad I came too. It's been a while since I felt like this, like I actually belong somewhere. Liam smiled, his gaze steady. You belong with me, Emma. Wherever that is. Emma felt her breath catch in her throat. Those words, those simple words, hit her in a way she hadn't expected. She had spent so long questioning whether she could ever fit into his world, but here he was, telling her that it didn't matter. In that moment, Emma knew she had to make a choice. She looked into his eyes, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam, I want to give this a real chance. Whatever this is, I want to see where it goes. Liam stepped closer, his hand gently brushing against her cheek. I've been hoping you'd say that. And in that moment, Emma knew. This wasn't just a fairy tale. It was real, and it was worth fighting for. It had been a few weeks since Emma and Liam had decided to give their relationship a real chance, and things between them were progressing beautifully. They had spent their time getting to know each other better, learning about each other's dreams, fears, and what truly mattered to them. Liam had been more open about his life than Emma ever expected, and she found herself feeling more and more comfortable around him. Still, the reality of their worlds being so different lingered in the back of her mind, and sometimes doubts crept in. One afternoon, as they sat in a quiet cafe, Liam turned to her with a serious expression on his face. Emma, there's something I need to tell you, he said, his tone more solemn than usual. Emma looked at him, her heart suddenly racing. She had learned by now that when Liam spoke this way, it was never trivial. What is it? She asked, her voice steady, though she could feel her anxiety building. Liam took a deep breath, his fingers tracing the rim of his coffee cup. I've been thinking a lot about us, and I know we've had some great moments together. But there's something you need to understand. I care about you, Emma. A lot. But sometimes I feel like I'm holding back, like I'm not being fully honest with you about, well, everything. Emma's brow furrowed in confusion. What do you mean? She asked, her mind racing with possibilities. Liam hesitated, clearly struggling with his words. I come from a family that's been wealthy for generations, Emma. You know that already, but what you don't know is how much pressure that's placed on me. My parents, my business partners. There are expectations, responsibilities, and I've always been expected to meet them, no matter what. I've spent my life trying to meet those expectations, trying to be the person everyone else wanted me to be. But when I met you, everything changed. You make me feel like I'm finally able to be myself. Emma listened carefully, her heart softening as she processed his words. She could hear the pain in his voice, the weight of his past. I don't want to keep hiding parts of myself from you, Liam continued, his voice low. I want you to understand who I am, not just the version of me that fits into your world, but the real me, the one who's been living under everyone else's shadow for so long. I want you to know everything, because I think you deserve to know the truth. For a moment, Emma was silent, taking in what he had just said. She had always known there was more to Liam than met the eye, but hearing him speak so openly about his struggles and the pressures he faced made her realize just how much he had been carrying. Liam, she said softly, her voice full of compassion, I appreciate you being so honest with me. I know it's not easy to open up, especially when you've spent so much time hiding who you really are. But I want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. You don't have to prove anything to me. I care about you for who you are, not because of your family or your money. Her words seemed to reassure him, and he let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. I don't want to be the kind of person who hides behind his wealth, Liam said, his eyes searching hers for understanding. I want to be with someone who sees me for me, not what I can offer. Emma smiled, her heart swelling with affection for him. You've already shown me who you are, Liam. You don't need to prove anything. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their conversation hanging in the air. Emma could see the relief in Liam's eyes, and she felt grateful for the trust he had placed in her. She realized, then, that she too had been hiding parts of herself, parts of her dreams and aspirations that she had kept buried because she didn't believe they were possible. But with Liam by her side, she felt like anything was possible. So, Emma said, breaking the silence, what happens next? Liam smiled, his usual easygoing charm returning. What happens next is simple, he said, his voice filled with confidence. We keep moving forward, together. No more hiding, no more pretending. Just us. Emma smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. Together, she repeated, her heart full. As they left the cafe hand in hand, Emma couldn't help but feel like the pieces of her life were finally falling into place. She had once feared that her past, her struggles, and her dreams would be too much for anyone to understand. But with Liam, she felt like she had found someone who truly saw her, someone who accepted her for who she was, flaws and all. And maybe, just maybe, they could build something real, something that was strong enough to withstand whatever challenges came their way. The days that followed were some of the happiest Emma had experienced in a long time. She and Liam were growing closer, learning more about each other every day. They continued to meet at local cafes, art galleries, and even spent quiet evenings walking through the park. Liam was everything Emma had hoped for and more. His sincerity, his patience, and the way he treated her made her feel seen in a way no one ever had before. Yet, despite the growing bond between them, Emma couldn't completely shake off the uncertainty that had been lingering in her mind since the beginning. Could this really work? Could they overcome the differences in their worlds? One afternoon, Liam invited her to his penthouse, a place she had heard about but never seen. Emma had always thought of him as someone who belonged to another world. But now, with every new revelation, she was starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, their worlds could merge. She arrived at his building, the grand entrance and luxury cars parked outside reminding her of the life Liam had, a life so different from her own. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. The moment the elevator doors opened, Emma was taken aback. The penthouse was nothing short of breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, and the space was sleek and modern, yet warm with subtle touches that made it feel lived in. Liam was waiting for her in the living room, a glass of wine in his hand. He greeted her with that same easy smile that always made her feel at home. "Welcome to my little corner of the world," Liam said, his voice filled with warmth. "I'm glad you could make it." Emma smiled, her eyes scanning the room. "This place is incredible," she said, her voice filled with awe. "It's so different from what I imagined." Liam chuckled and gestured for her to sit. "I guess it's a little more than just different, huh?" Emma laughed softly and took a seat on the plush couch, still trying to wrap her mind around the luxury of it all. She had never been in a place like this before. It was hard not to feel out of place, but she was determined to make the most of it. As Liam poured them both a glass of wine, they sat down and began to talk. The conversation flowed easily, just as it always did. Emma found herself relaxing, her nerves slowly melting away as they shared stories about their lives. She told him about her childhood, growing up in a small town, and her dreams of one day opening her own art gallery. Liam shared more about his family, the pressure he felt to live up to expectations, and the burden of his wealth that often left him feeling isolated. "I've spent so much of my life trying to prove myself to everyone else," Liam said, his voice becoming quieter. "But with you, Emma, it feels different. I don't have to prove anything. I can just be me." Emma's heart ached as she listened to him. She knew what it was like to feel weighed down by the expectations of others. She had always worked so hard to make her dreams a reality, and the idea that Liam felt the same pressure, despite his wealth, resonated deeply with her. "I get that," Emma said softly. "I've always felt like I have to do everything on my own. Like, if I didn't work hard enough, I wouldn't be able to get anywhere. But, I think I'm starting to realize that I don't have to do it all alone. Maybe that's what's so different about us. You make me feel like I'm not alone in this anymore." Liam reached over and gently took her hand, his touch reassuring. "You're not alone, Emma. Not anymore." The words hung in the air between them, and for a moment, Emma allowed herself to believe them. She had spent so much of her life being independent, thinking that she could handle everything on her own. But with Liam, she felt a sense of security, a sense of being truly seen and supported. She looked at him, her heart swelling with emotion. "I'm glad we're doing this," Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm glad we're giving this a chance." Liam smiled, his thumb gently tracing the back of her hand. "Me too," he said, his voice soft and sincere. "I know it's not always going to be easy. We come from different worlds, but I believe we can make it work. We just have to trust each other." Emma nodded, her eyes locking with his. She had learned to trust him over the past few weeks, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like she could trust herself, too. As the evening wore on, they spent the rest of the night talking, laughing, and sharing moments that made Emma realize just how much they had in common. Their differences, whether it was their backgrounds, their families, or their lifestyles, seemed less important than the connection they were building. By the time Emma left, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't known she needed. Liam walked her to the door, and before she left, he pulled her into a warm hug. "I'll see you soon," he asked, his voice hopeful. "I'd like that," Emma replied, her heart racing. She knew they were just beginning their journey together, but for the first time, she felt confident in what they had. They were moving forward, and no matter what challenges lay ahead, Emma knew they could face them together. As she walked away from his penthouse, Emma couldn't help but smile. Maybe, just maybe, she had found something real, something worth fighting for. It had been a few weeks since Emma and Liam had made their relationship official, and things were moving forward in ways Emma hadn't expected. They spent more time together, their connection growing deeper with each passing day. Emma had never been one to put too much stock in fate, but with Liam, she couldn't help but feel like their meeting had happened for a reason. It wasn't just about the wealth, the glamour, or the life he could offer her. It was about the bond they shared, the way they balanced each other out. But despite how much Emma cared for him, she still found herself questioning whether this relationship could truly last. Was she just a temporary escape for Liam? A charming distraction from his high-powered, high-pressure life? Or was this the real deal? One evening, Emma and Liam had plans to meet for dinner. It had been a long day for both of them. Emma had worked an exhausting shift at the diner, and Liam had been tied up with business meetings all afternoon. But they had been looking forward to this dinner together, a chance to unwind and enjoy each other's company. As Emma arrived at the restaurant, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She tried to brush it aside, telling herself it was just her nerves getting the best of her. But when she walked into the cozy, dimly lit restaurant, her heart sank. Liam wasn't there yet. She found a table by the window, her eyes scanning the room. The waitstaff greeted her warmly, but Emma couldn't focus on much other than the nagging feeling in her chest. She checked her phone, no messages from Liam. She tried to stay calm, telling herself that he was probably just running late. He had been under a lot of pressure at work lately, and things had been hectic for both of them. Still, the longer she sat there, the more her anxiety grew. Half an hour passed, and Liam still hadn't shown up. Emma's mind began to race. Had something happened? Was he upset with her? She didn't know what to think. The worry she had pushed down for so long bubbled to the surface. The last thing she wanted was for this to be another failed attempt at love, another relationship that crumbled under the weight of expectations and misunderstandings. She was about to send him a message when her phone buzzed. It was a text from Liam. "Emma, I'm so sorry. Something came up with work, and I can't make it tonight. I know this is last minute, and I feel awful about it. Can we reschedule for tomorrow? I promise I'll make it up to you." Emma's heart dropped as she read the message. She understood that work could get in the way, but this was different. She had been looking forward to this evening. She had spent the whole day anticipating their time together, and now, it felt like everything had come crashing down. She tried to stay calm, but the disappointment was too much. She took a deep breath and typed out a response. "It's okay, Liam. I get it. But maybe we should talk about this later. I'm not sure what to think right now." She hit send and sat back in her chair, staring out the window at the city lights. She felt an overwhelming sense of emptiness, a hollow feeling that had nothing to do with the canceled dinner. It was the feeling that had been lurking in the back of her mind for weeks, the fear that, despite everything, this was too good to be true. Before she could dwell on it any longer, her phone buzzed again. It was a call from Liam. "Hey," he said when she answered, his voice full of apology. "I'm really sorry about tonight. I know I've been distant, and I can only imagine how this must look." Emma's voice trembled slightly as she replied, "I just don't understand, Liam. I thought we were making progress. But this feels like you're pulling away again." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and Emma could hear the soft sounds of Liam's breathing as he collected his thoughts. "You're right," he said finally. "I have been pulling away, but not because I don't care. It's because I'm afraid. Afraid of messing this up. Afraid that I'll let you down, like I've let others down before. I didn't mean to hurt you." Emma felt a lump form in her throat. She had never heard him sound so vulnerable. "Liam," she whispered, "I just want to be with you. But I can't keep doing this if I don't know where we stand." Liam's voice softened, and she could hear the sincerity in his words. "You're right. I need to stop hiding from my feelings, stop being afraid of getting hurt. I care about you, Emma, more than you know. And I want to build something real with you, something that lasts. Emma closed her eyes, her heart swelling with emotion. Maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe this was the beginning of something even better than she had imagined. Then let's take it one step at a time, Emma said, her voice steady now. I'm in, Liam. But only if we're both all in. There was a pause before Liam spoke again, his voice filled with relief. We're both in, Emma. I promise. The following days were filled with a sense of relief and newfound understanding. Liam and Emma had finally opened up to each other, and the walls that had once separated them seemed to crumble. There were still moments of doubt. Of course, old habits were hard to break, and Emma's past wasn't something she could just forget. But for the first time in a long while, she felt like she had someone who genuinely understood her. They had made a promise to take things one step at a time, and Emma was starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. It was a Sunday afternoon when Liam invited her to a quiet park near his place. They had been spending more time together, but this felt different. He had been unusually quiet over text, and Emma was starting to wonder if something was on his mind. As she arrived at the park, she saw him sitting on a bench under a tree, his back against the trunk, looking deep in thought. He looked up as she approached, offering her a small smile, but Emma could tell he had something on his mind. Hey, she said softly, sitting next to him. You've been quiet today. What's going on? Liam shifted slightly, his gaze fixed on the ground for a moment before he met her eyes. I've been thinking, Emma. I've been thinking about us, and about everything we've talked about. I know we've had our fair share of ups and downs, but I don't want to keep living in fear of losing you. I don't want to wait until it's too late to tell you how much you mean to me. Emma's heart raced at his words. She had never heard him speak so openly before, and it hit her in a way she wasn't expecting. She had always known how much he cared for her, but hearing him say it out loud made it feel real. Liam, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I've been thinking the same thing. I don't want to be afraid of what comes next. I want to take a chance on us, on this, whatever this is. Liam smiled softly, reaching for her hand. You're right. We've both been afraid, but it's time we stopped letting fear control us. I want to build a future with you, Emma. I know it won't be easy, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Emma felt the weight of his words, the sincerity behind them. She had spent so much time trying to protect herself, afraid of getting hurt again, but with Liam, she felt like she could finally let her guard down. It wasn't just about the romantic gestures, the grand promises. It was the quiet moments like this, when he was just there, being real with her, that made her believe in what they were building together. She squeezed his hand, her voice steady now. I want that too, Liam. I want to see where this can go, without the fear of what might happen. Let's take that chance, together. They sat in silence for a moment, the sound of the breeze rustling the leaves above them filling the air. It was a quiet, peaceful moment, but Emma felt something shift within her. It wasn't just a promise they were making. It was a commitment, a shared understanding of what they both wanted from this relationship. They were no longer hiding from each other, no longer afraid of what they might lose. After a while, Liam stood up and offered her his hand. Come on, he said with a grin. Let's take a walk. I think we've got a lot more to talk about. As they walked side by side through the park, Emma felt a sense of peace that had been missing for so long. She had found someone who truly cared for her, who saw her not as someone to be fixed, but as someone worth loving. And in that moment, she realized that love wasn't just about the perfect moments. It was about the quiet ones, the ones where you didn't have to say anything at all to know that you were right where you needed to be. Together, huh? Liam said, his voice soft as they walked. Together, Emma replied, her heart full of hope. Weeks passed, and with each one, Emma and Liam's relationship only grew stronger. They spent more time together, navigating the ups and downs of life, supporting each other in ways they hadn't expected. Emma had never thought she would be able to open up so fully to someone, especially not someone like Liam. He had shown her that love wasn't just about grand gestures or fairy tale endings. It was about trust, about being there for each other when it mattered most, and, most of all, about showing up every single day. Despite their different worlds, they had found common ground, a shared space where love could grow. One sunny afternoon, as they sat together in the park where they had first spoken about their hopes and fears, Emma looked at Liam and smiled. He had become her rock, her safe place in a world that often felt overwhelming. She was no longer the unsure woman who had walked into that cafe all those months ago. She had learned to trust herself, and in turn, trust Liam. They had built something real, something lasting. Liam, sensing the quiet contentment in the air, turned to her. "You've changed, you know that?" he said softly. "You've let go of the fear, the walls that kept you from trusting. I can see it in the way you look at me now." Emma smiled, the warmth in her chest spreading outward. "I've learned a lot from you, Liam. About love, about trust, about what it really means to be together. And I've learned that it's not about the perfect moments. It's about making the imperfect ones work." Liam reached out and took her hand, his grip firm but gentle. "I couldn't agree more. And I'm glad we're doing this, Emma. Glad we're here, together, after everything." Emma nodded, her heart full. "Me too. I never thought I would find this, something real, something worth fighting for. But with you, I found exactly that." The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the park. It was the kind of moment that felt timeless, like they had been walking toward this place together for years. Emma didn't know what the future would bring, but for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of it. "You know," Liam said, his voice quiet but filled with meaning, "I used to think that everything had to be perfect to be worth it. That if it wasn't ideal, it wasn't real. But then I met you, and you showed me that love isn't about perfection. It's about being with the person who makes you want to be better. And I think that's enough." Emma turned to face him, her eyes filled with emotion. "It is enough," she agreed softly. "It's more than enough." The breeze carried the scent of flowers and the sound of distant laughter, and for a moment, they simply sat together, enjoying the peace that surrounded them. There were no promises of forever yet, no need for them. What mattered was that, right here and right now, they were building something real. They had chosen each other, and that was all that mattered. As the evening drew to a close, Liam stood and extended his hand to Emma, helping her up with a smile. "Shall we?" he asked, his voice gentle. "Yes," she said, her heart light. "Let's go." They walked hand in hand, not knowing where the road would lead, but certain that they would face it together. And in that moment, with the stars beginning to twinkle above, Emma knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she was ready to face them. Because she wasn't alone anymore. She had found something real, something worth holding on to. And that, she realized, was the greatest gift of all.